Notre Dame de Paris, a treasured icon of Gothic architecture and medieval construction. But on April the 15th, 2019, disaster strikes. A devastating fire rips through the cathedral, threatening to bring down the entire structure. For the second time, I've been given the most marvelous opportunity to visit the work site here at Notre Dame, where a huge team of people are working away on the cathedral. They've rebuilt the walls, they've restored the interior, and now they're nearly at the end of their 5-year adventure. I can't wait to see what's been happening inside. We'll meet the master craftspeople and engineers battling to bring Notre Dame back to life.
There are 500 or 600 people here every day. It's a huge adventure.
Hundreds of workers are entering the final critical stage of an ambitious race to restore this medieval masterpiece, in time for a grand reopening. It's a gigantic puzzle like no other. Historians and scientists work together to analyze and reproduce Notre Dame's architectural mysteries.
This piece with this piece are together.
They're revealing ancient technology hidden for centuries.
This mark is almost on every piece of wood in the carpentry.
And battling to save the fragile structure of the building. Now in the final stage of this extraordinary 5-year restoration project. This is the inside story of the race to save Notre Dame Cathedral. Paris, the city of lights. A destination for millions of visitors from around the world every year. On April the 15th, 2019, the 850-year-old Cathedral of Notre Dame de Paris was undergoing an £8 million renovation of the spire when a fire broke out inside the oak framework of the roof. After 90 minutes, the 800-ton timber and lead spire gave way. It crashed through the stone vaulting below, creating gaping holes. Now, this old lady is looking very different from when I was last here. Okay, there is still scaffolding, but look, there's a roof up there, and the spire is back. There it is, shooting up towards the sky. If you squint your eyes and pretend the scaffolding's not there, it's almost like that fire never happened. Back in 2019, the focus was to protect what had survived and begin the task of rebuilding the cathedral. Workers removed 40,000 burned and melted scaffolding poles left over from the spire restoration and erected a temporary roof that opened and closed on special rollers to keep the stonework and interior dry. During all this work, the medieval masterpiece has been closed to worshippers and tourists alike. Around 13 million people toured Notre Dame each year before the fire. They came to marvel at a building that pushed the limits of Gothic architecture.
Tragic as the fire was, I think it took something like that to make us understand just what an absolutely amazing work of collaborative genius that building was.
It's still not known how the fire started, but 5 years later, the ambitious project to restore the cathedral is well underway and approaching completion. Donors have now contributed nearly £800 million towards this effort. It's been a colossal undertaking. The team has had to remove toxic lead dust, the remains of the old lead roof left over from the fire. Then clean and restore the fragile stained glass windows. They must reconstruct the roof identically and fill the 3 gaping holes in the stone vaulting. rebuild the timber framework from almost 1,000 oak beams, cover it with 3,000 square meters of lead sheets, and raise the iconic 65-meter spire. It's the largest cathedral restoration project ever undertaken in France.
J'ai plusieurs raisons en fait pour être, on va dire, heureux, passionné, complètement stressé d'intervenir sur Notre Dame.
Notre Dame's chief architect, Philippe Villeneuve, has led the team tasked with resurrecting the world-famous cathedral since work began.
J'ai effectivement déclaré que le 15 avril 2019, j'ai rencontré mon destin. Et moi, je suis à la tête de tout ça, donc j'ai une vision complète. Et dès que je me balade, il ne faut pas que je ne sois pas au courant de. Donc mon boulot, ça va? Je peux passer par là quand même? C'est de toujours être au courant, tenu informé par mes collaborateurs.
Notre Dame has been in a state of salvage and rebuild for nearly 5 years.
Ce qui est le vrai défi finalement tout au long de ces années, c'est le temps. Et c'est donc gérer la coactivité, c'est-à-dire le travail simultané de tous ces corps de métier.
The team needs to bring together many elements from all corners of France to complete Notre Dame's restoration. Quarries and stonemasons from outside Paris need to ship 2,500 tons of stone to repair the vaults and damaged statues. 2,400 oak trees felled all over France are being shipped to carpentry workshops to fabricate the beams for the roof and spire.
Ça suppose une organisation, une infrastructure de chantier, des moyens de levage, des plateformes de levage, de l'approvisionnement. Beaucoup de choses qu'il faut mettre en place pour assurer ce dynamisme.
They want to reopen the cathedral to visitors later this year. Last time I was here, that felt almost ridiculously ambitious. So I'm keen to get inside and find out how things are looking.
Oh, wow. It's so different from when I was last here. That was dark, it was intense, it was noisy, it was full of scaffolding, it was basically like hell. But now, it's beginning to look like a church again. It's still pretty noisy, but there's sort of serenity underneath. And there was that great big hole in the roof and it's gone. Things have really come on.
Restoring Notre Dame to its former glory is a massive undertaking, demanding the unique skills and dedication of thousands of workers. The French National Heritage and Architecture Commission has ruled that Notre Dame be rebuilt exactly as it was before the fire. This means that the reconstruction must stay true to the techniques of the past, modern hands building to historic plans.
This is just the fantastic thing about being able to watch such an extraordinary group of people at work, watching their curiosity and being able to follow that detective process.
Since 2019, the team has successfully shored up this stone edifice and decontaminated the site. One of the team's challenges at Notre Dame was to fill the 3 holes in the stone vaults. First, they had to build a 33-metre-high network of scaffolding and erect temporary timber supports to prop up the remaining vaults, which were extremely fragile. Only with these in place could the team of highly specialised stone cutters then start to rebuild the collapsed limestone masonry.
Je ne crois pas qu'il y ait beaucoup de pays en Europe ou dans le monde où on a encore des maçons et des tailleurs de pierre qui reconstruisent des voûtes. C'est plus l'époque. Donc il a fallu qu'on réapprenne.
Notre Dame was originally built from 30 different types of limestone. Limestone is a strong and versatile material. The stone that makes up the cathedral's lower layers is heavy and tough. Ideal for Notre Dame's monumental walls and pillars because it doesn't crush under its own weight. The softer and less dense stone from the upper layers is perfect for building massive span ceiling vaults, held aloft by limestone that's both light and strong. The teams had to repair or completely replace around 1,000 cubic meters of stonework. Sourcing this much new stone to match the old is no simple task.
Quand vous regardez les pierres de Notre-Dame, vous voyez qu'il y a beaucoup de zones avec des petits trous. Ce sont des pierres qui sont marquées par la présence de fossiles, parce qu'il y a des sérites dedans. Ce sont des petits coquillages qui sont en involution. Et en fait, après, ces coquillages parfois partent et on a ces vides. Et ça donne une texture particulière à la cathédrale.
The limestone to rebuild Notre Dame comes from 9 quarries across France. Benoit Orchol runs one of these quarries. It produces a unique limestone that cannot be sourced from anywhere else in the country.
Notre carrière soit quasiment la seule à pouvoir fournir cette qualité de pierre et surtout dans ces dimensions-là.
Benoit's team must quarry and ship 670 cubic meters of stone for Notre Dame. It's the largest order his family-run business has ever received.
Sur 1 an et demi, en fait, je vais avoir doublé ma production pour subvenir aux besoins de Notre-Dame.
This team has a huge job. They need to cut around 550 blocks in a very limited period of time.
Dans un gros bloc comme ça, il reste pas entier comme ça, bien sûr, ça va être recoupé en plusieurs petits blocs.
Cutting a block of stone calls for an expert eye and experience. They guide a 32-foot-long saw by remote control to precisely slice the stone.
Il y a de grandes chances que d'ailleurs ce bloc ne parte pour Notre-Dame parce qu'il n'a pas l'air d'avoir de défaut. Dans la carrière, on a plusieurs bancs de pierre différents et on a vraiment un spécifique où la pierre dure ressemble vraiment à la pierre dure de Notre-Dame. Et c'est vraiment ce banc de pierre-là qu'on va choisir pour reconstruire Notre-Dame.
Once the block has been cut on both sides, Benoit uses a large steel talon to lever it out of the bedrock. It takes skill to free the limestone and find the highest quality segments.
Il est aux dimensions que l'on souhaite.
They tie the blocks to the back of a truck and transport them to a workshop, where workers give them a special wash. This saw slices off the edge of the block to reveal the true quality of the stone inside.
C'est ce qui va nous permettre en fait de voir aussi ce lavage, les éventuels défauts qu'il peut avoir dans la pierre, parce que ça reste un matériau naturel. Donc il y a toujours des petits défauts qui peuvent apparaître. Et comme ça, on peut sélectionner vraiment les plus beaux blocs et avoir le moins de pertes possible. On choisit des blocs qui vont finalement s'inscrire dans l'histoire et vont être pas éternels, mais presque, pour nous, ce sera éternel.
Another daunting challenge that the team here face is to rebuild the roof's iconic 19th century spire. The cathedral's original spire rose 96 meters from the ground. It was clad in lead over a skeleton of oak beams. It was the most intricate element of the roof.
La dernière fois qu'on a fait une flèche aussi compliquée, aussi complexe, aussi grande que celle-ci, c'était la même. Voilà, j'en connais pas d'autres en fait aussi complexes.
Rebuilding this engineering masterpiece is no simple task. Workers must anchor the base of the spire on top of 4 stone pillars built around the ceiling vaults. From this rock-solid base, they must assemble a wooden skeleton that weighs almost 500 tons, more than 65 meters above the ground. They must carefully wrap this in lead to protect it from the elements and reinstall 16 decorative copper statues that are being restored to complete Notre Dame's famous spire. The team plans to rebuild the new spire so that it's identical to the original 19th century design.
Si on voulait avoir la même forme générale, il fallait qu'on ait la même structure. Et que donc, pour avoir la même structure, il fallait avoir le même matériau.
The spire's octagonal in shape. Its skeleton is clad with many decorative frames that a team of specialist carpenters must carve by hand. Floral motifs decorate each of the 8 faces of the spire. They're known as trefoils and quatrefoils. They're inspired by a medieval aesthetic, and they're being recreated by these 21st century artisans. Carpenters need to cut 1,000 timber sections and create 2,000 joints to form the skeleton of the spire. The base alone is made up of 110 separate pieces of timber that must interlock perfectly to give the structure strength. The spire will be assembled in 4 separate layers. To ensure each layer fits together, carpenters and engineers first assemble all the components off-site. It takes the team 4 weeks to complete the first layer, which will form the base of the spire. The test assembly at this workshop is a success. All these pieces fit together just as they should. Now workers dismantle and ship the pieces to Notre Dame. On site, workers reassemble the sections on the ground so that cranes can lift them into position. With the base of the spire complete, now the team can integrate the timbers around it that make up Notre Dame's roof, known as the forest. The fire devastated the wooden structure of the cathedral. The rebuild of the roof is the most crucial element to the success of the restoration.
I really hate heights. I don't like this at all. Oh, look down there. But I think this will be worth it for what's at the top. In 2019, the fire started above the roof, and this huge timber structure, known as the forest because of all the wood, got completely destroyed. But now I think the forest has sprung back to life.
Teams of carpenters are working flat out to install the timber trusses that make up the roof across the length of the nave. They begin from the base of the spire and move outwards in all 4 directions.
Each bay has 2 principal trusses and 4 secondaries, which are a bit smaller in section. In the coming weeks, we have pieces that'll actually insert into the stone gable between the 2 towers at the western end of the building. Interestingly, in the Middle Ages, they actually started the carpentry there. We're working in reverse just because of the way the site is organized. There are 500 or 600 people here every day, exchanging with the other craftspeople, the other carpenters, seeing every step of the cathedral. It's fascinating every day, and it's just a huge adventure.
Gosh, here's the forest, and it has its own smell. It smells like fresh cut oak. And you can see that this hasn't been done by machines. That's been done by the human hand. I think that makes it all the more lovely.
They used 1,200 oak trees, mostly felled in state-owned forests across France, to reproduce the Gothic roof trusses. On site, the roof trusses arrived thick and fast. There's no assembly manual for this process. The carpenters here share a secret coded language that's hidden beneath the interwoven structure. Look at this. They've even taken the trouble to reproduce the original numbering system that was used by the medieval craftsmen. This means that this was timber number 4 on the south side. Nothing has been overlooked to make it just like it was. They use Roman numerals and other traditional symbols to identify the positions of the beams and where they interlock.
This is a really old technique, old marking technique that is understood by carpenters all around France. Thanks to this mark, we know exactly where this piece goes. This can go nowhere else.
This technique was also used by the medieval carpenters who built Notre Dame's original roof. These charred roof timbers recovered from the fire depict the same special code.
Here you have a mark of carpenters. So they are sure that this piece with this piece are together.
Some of these marks hold special messages today, just as they did centuries ago.
This mark is a bit specific. It's almost on every piece of wood in the carpentry. If I use a level there, the bubble should be centered. Yeah, I'm fine with it.
The coded messages are steeped in history, and so are the techniques.
Hank, can you tell me how these pieces of timber have been cut?
The medieval carpentry, specifically, we used green wood, which means it's unseasoned, fresh off the stump. Every other beam that you see here was hand-hewn, so with an axe. So that's the telltale surface that you see.
Yes.
The sort of rippling, undulating signature of the axe. They're not at all cured or dried or seasoned in any way. And that's the way this carpentry was done initially.
Medieval carpenters had access to vast areas of forest to select the best trees to build Notre Dame's roof. Back then, timbers were used unseasoned, shortly after felling. This green oak was soft and easier to work with than seasoned timber that had been dried. Today, the team follows the same process. Using green timber creates unique challenges. Moisture in the timber means that as it dries, its shape can slowly change over time. The market town of Chesterfield in the United Kingdom bears witness to the perils of building with green timber. It's thought that the 660-year-old crooked spire of the parish church could be due to beams that have warped as they've dried. For Notre Dame's roof and spire, this precarious twisting must be avoided at all costs.
L'inconvénient principal, c'est que le bois va exercer un retrait. C'est-à-dire que ses dimensions en séchant vont réduire, tant en longueur qu'en largeur, qu'en section. Alors là-dessus, les experts ne sont pas d'accord entre eux.
Le problème avec Notre-Dame, c'est la monumentalité de la structure. On est sur un retrait de 1 mm par mètre environ sur le bois. Alors quand on est sur 1 mètre, 1 mm sur 1 mètre, c'est pas très grave, mais quand on est sur 10 mètres, une poutre qui fait 10 mètres, donc ça nous fait un retrait d'1 centimètre. Et là, on pourrait observer des pathologies qui sont préjudiciables à la structure.
To investigate the risks of any potential warping, Emmanuel is conducting a unique experiment in the heart of rural France. 3 years ago, he joined forces with timber scientists and college students to build this huge replica section of Notre Dame's roof. These green oak beams are bristling with hundreds of sensors and surveying targets. Data from the sensors so far reveals that the quality of the joints and the assembly itself, rather than the amount of moisture in the timber, is key to creating a robust structure that won't warp. Further data should allow restorers to anticipate problems and intervene long before twisting or splintering occurs.
As the roof has started to settle down, has it done anything that surprised you?
Yeah, invariably as the green wood dries, it will check and twist and shrink and that's just the way, I mean, that's life, that's the way it is. But green wood, if you're working specifically as we were with hand tools, green wood is much easier to work with hand tools. It's a bit like cutting a ripe fruit. As the wood dries, it becomes brittle and less amenable to hand tool work.
So the wood is easier to work, but then you have to predict how it's going to behave once you've put the roof up.
There are certain tensions in the wood that we've noticed that we've had to adapt to during the raising of the frame here. We've had to pull things in and hold them tight as we set them in place because there are certain pieces that have a tendency to spring out. And so, yes, we have had to adjust a little bit as the wood is dried.
As the timber roof takes shape, the team must also take precautions to protect it.
C'est un gros travail que nous devons terminer, une protection incendie entièrement repensée.
It's thought that the 2019 fire began inside the roof. So today, they're installing a state-of-the-art fire detection and suppression system to guard against future fires.
Il y a toute une panoplie de moyens nouveaux, comme des fermes coupe-feu dans les combles, comme un PC de sécurité incendie avec des remontées d'alarme, comme aussi on a amélioré l'alimentation en eau de la cathédrale.
Workers are engineering a pioneering safety system into the rebuilt cathedral. They're erecting special fire-resistant compartments. These prevent fires from spreading quickly. They're installing heat-sensing cameras to spot fires the second they break out. And automated fire extinguishers will use a fine, high-pressure water mist to douse flames, creating next to no water damage.
On s'est rendu compte que dans un cas d'incendie comme celui du 15 avril, avec un feu extrêmement développé sur l'ensemble de cœur, on crée un tampon et donc on évite cet effet d'inflammation des gaz juste par rayonnement. On a proposé de construire ce qu'on a appelé une travée coupe-feu. Donc en fait, c'est deux grands murs coupe-feu à chaque fois. Donc là, vous avez deux grands murs coupe-feu qui sont reliés entre eux et qui sont autostables. On a mis des caméras thermiques pour pouvoir voir plus précisément les choses et que si un système ne détecte pas, l'autre puisse fonctionner.
A network of sensors in the roof detect heat as well as smoke. If they detect a fire, the new system should be able to extinguish it before it spreads.
L'avantage de la brumisation, c'est qu'en fait, ça crée c'est une micro-nébulisation en fait, de l'eau. Donc ça fait des toutes petites gouttelettes minuscules et ça crée un brouillard. Et donc du coup, le brouillard remplit l'ensemble du volume d'un coup. Il remplace quelque part l'oxygène et ça empêche le feu de se déployer. Donc là, c'est très efficace.
The innovative system should protect Notre Dame's Great Forest from future threats of fire. "50 meters below the carpenters constructing Notre Dame's new roof, another team of experts is unearthing the cathedral's ancient past."
Every week we discover a new hidden corner of the building where we go into a place that we haven't seen before. We see what the archaeologists have uncovered, skeletons everywhere.
The work to restore the structure's historic footings offers an unprecedented portal into the past. Archaeologists have uncovered a treasure trove of findings hidden beneath the cathedral floor.
Et vous avez là, de ce côté-là, cette fois les fouilles archéologiques, où vous avez des sépultures, et vous avez encore un ossement là qui est là. Et là, ils sont en train de travailler.
They include 400 burials dating back nearly 800 years, and at least 10 preserved sarcophagi, including a 14th century clergyman.
Vous avez ici un aperçu de tout ce que peut renfermer Notre-Dame.
Their work is also revealing ancient engineering secrets.
Vous avez ici les caniveaux qui ont été créés par Viollet-le-Duc, en briques et tout ça, qui amenaient l'air chaud et qui sortaient ensuite dans des bouches de soufflage.
Engineers are now using the historic heating ducts to house modern electrical cables.
On voit une cathédrale du XIIIe siècle et boum, on voit ici des tuyaux, des câbles, des trucs qui ressemblent plus ou moins à une usine, enfin dans des locaux, on va dire, modernes. Parce que Notre-Dame de Paris va être une cathédrale du XXIe siècle et peut-être même du XXIIe, qui va être dotée de tous les dispositifs modernes, les plus modernes.
The building of the modern cathedral requires an enormous amount of supplies. Delivering materials to the centre of Paris is one of the team's most complex logistical challenges.
Ah là, il y a de la navigation là aujourd'hui. Bon, bah, qu'est-ce qu'il fait lui?
To avoid creating gridlock in the city, they make use of the waterway that surrounds Notre Dame, the River Seine, and deliver the stone by barge.
La difficulté ici de naviguer sur le rétréci du bras de la Monnaie, c'est les ponts.
Notre Dame sits on an island in the river.
Parce que les ponts, ils sont peu étroits, puis on est limité en longueur. La longueur, c'est 60 mètres.
It rests on the shoulders of captains, such as Eric Ducou, to skillfully navigate shipments of limestone to the island.
Pour le transport des pierres, il fallait faire attention pour l'équilibrage du bateau. Vous voyez, mais on ne peut pas tout mettre les pierres parce que le bateau aurait été prendre une gîte et puis il va y avoir une arrivée, faire tomber les pierres, c'est pas le jour.
Docking the barge safely at the congested delivery point requires a steady hand.
Nous, on est là. Ici, Notre-Dame est là.
Skills like this have guided materials to Notre Dame for hundreds of years.
Quand Notre-Dame s'est construit, donc c'était une livraison par bateau. Et on reproduit exactement ce que les anciens ont fait, mais avec du matériel plus moderne, voilà. Oh. Oui, je vais ralentir là, ouais.
Eric can dock his barge right next to the work site,
Voilà, c'est bon.
where Notre Dame's cranes can unload the stones. Barges like Eric's are delivering more than 55 tons of stone, alongside shipments of lead, to complete this historic rebuild.
Voilà, c'est bon. Bah si, c'est bien de travailler sur un bateau. C'est comme tout, il y a ses inconvénients et puis son plaisir, je dirais.
Eric will make dozens of journeys like this over the next 8 months.
C'est un monument historique, oui, symbolique pour la France, oui.
Il y a un état d'esprit extraordinaire, il y a de la fierté, de l'enthousiasme, une unité, une union de tous. On est tous solidaires, tendus vers l'objectif de rendre la cathédrale à tous ceux qui l'aiment.
Ah bah, on est fiers de faire partie de l'histoire de Notre-Dame.
Back up on the roof, the team is gearing up for the next critical stage of construction. They must cover the roof and spire with protective sheets of lead.
Le plomb, c'est un mode de couverture qui est fréquent dans les grands monuments historiques. C'était important pour des raisons d'authenticité. C'est un métal qui a de très grande qualité parce qu'il est très durable et puis parce qu'il est malléable.
To acquire the quantities of lead they needed, the team had to look outside France, across the English Channel, to this factory in Leicester. Workers here produce special sheets of lead cast on a flat bed of sand. It's a technique that's been used for centuries.
Sand's been used from the Roman times to produce lead sheets, and there's only a small number of manufacturers in the world that manufacture sandcastle lead. The process today is pretty much as it was originally.
This method of casting lead on sand was developed by medieval engineers, but has almost died out across Europe today. It requires expert skills.
All the skill and knowledge is within the person manufacturing the lead.
The first step is to lay down a bed of fine moulding sand on top of the casting table.
Down to the bottom there, it's only a timber board, and that's got holes in to allow the steam to come through. When the molten lead goes on top, the steam needs to escape, because otherwise if the steam comes up and we've only got a small layer of molten lead on top, it will force the steam out of the lead and causes splits in the lead. So it's quite important to get everything perfectly done.
The team packs down the sand to even out the surface, so the molten lead sets smoothly on top.
The guys have pressed it down so it's a nice consistency all the way along. Copper plane's used just to give that perfect finish on top without any blemishes or marks. The sand, if it's left not quite perfect, it could pick up a small bit of sand, which might leave a small pinhole or impurity in the lead. So making sure this bit's perfectly smooth and that we've got a consistency of the lead sheet all the way through.
Next step is to load the furnace with lead ingots. These are made from lead recycled from scrapyards and discarded batteries. The ingots are refined to 99% pure lead.
The furnaces have taps to allow the lead to pour into the head pan. The temperature of the lead now will be around about 360, 370 degrees, and that allows it to cool down. We're looking to get to about 327 degrees. You can see it's slightly setting as they actually move the lead. That literally is because we are just above the melting point. Once that's all clear, we're ready to pour. This head pan's controlled by a hydraulic ram. The hydraulic ram has a speed sensor on it, so we can actually speed up the way the lead tips or slow it down, which also helps with achieving better thicknesses and a more even consistency of the sheet on the table. The lead is actually poured down the sand at about 327 degrees. As it hits the sand, it instantly sets. As you watch the strickle run forward through the molten lead, it's physically setting behind, creating a brand new lead sheet. Every throw is different. It's a handmade product. What we're looking for on a lead sheet is small pinholes, looking for potential cracks, small things you wouldn't notice with the untrained eye. You can see the guys are now rolling the finished sheets. They'll still be warm. They roll pretty easy whilst they're nice and warm. And the craftsmanship and skill of the guys making the lead is really important. They've been doing it for many years now. The skill they've got in manufacturing the lead, you can't actually physically teach it. You can't give anybody a manual and say, this is how you do it. It's a case of getting involved and basically having the skills just to do the process over and over again.
The team here has 6 months to make more than 280 tons of lead for Notre Dame. Workers can now cut, bend and mould these sheets over the timber framework to make the cathedral's roof and spire watertight. There's now just 11 months to go until Notre Dame's doors are due to open to the public. Teams are working around the clock to assemble the timberwork and lead for the roof and spire, cut and install the limestone for the vaults, and clean and restore the cathedral's ornate windows. It's a unique and complex tapestry.
The architecture, the engineering, the art, the stained glass, those amazing gargoyles just come together collectively to make that miraculous building.
One of the most intricate tasks for the team of stonemasons here is to repair and restore the statues and friezes high up on Notre Dame's roof and walls. These gargoyles and chimeras have overlooked the city and protected the cathedral for hundreds of years. Medieval architects designed the gargoyles to help channel rainwater away from the building's walls and prevent the stone from eroding. The chimeras are purely decorative features. They're shaped in the form of mythical beasts, created to evoke a sense of mystery and ward off evil forces. Many of these sculptures were designed and installed by master architect Eugène Viollet-le-Duc, who oversaw a major restoration of Notre Dame in the 19th century. Many of the detailed features on these iconic sculptures have been eroded away by the elements over time. Today, as part of Notre Dame's grand 21st century restoration, teams are removing all of the sculptures. They're taking them to this special 200 square meter workshop at the foot of the cathedral.
Oh my goodness! This place is a treasure trove. It's absolutely stuffed with sculptures.
The restored statues are being used as a template to carve a brand new family of limestone sculptures. The new sculptures must be identical in size and shape to the original for installation in the cathedral.
On a reconstruit les sculptures qui nous sont arrivées ici, les chimères.
They must adopt different techniques to restore and resculpt depending on how damaged the stonework is.
On a découvert qu'elle était à 1000 morceaux. On avait naturellement des images, on a fait une petite étude pour voir qu'est-ce qu'on avait. On a fait tout un travail, un peu des recherches, et on a essayé comme un puzzle, et on a essayé les petites parties, ça va là, ça va là, et c'était un travail assez amusant. Je vais à conserver et restaurer qu'elle était existant. Du coup, je dois chercher la meilleure façon de restaurer les sculptures.
Viollet-le-Duc's original 19th century statues will be treasured for future display.
Là, il y avait un museau certainement qui venait en pointe comme ça.
Some sculptures, like this gargoyle, have missing features. Restoring the lost details to help them make identical modern replicas requires detective work.
On a des dessins de Viollet-le-Duc dont on peut s'inspirer. Il y a toute une base de données qui date de l'époque de Viollet-le-Duc. Et donc à partir de ça, à partir des photos anciennes, là on sait qu'il y avait un museau pointu.
They need to repair the old, damaged sculpture before they can create its replica. The first step is to apply layers of special stone mortar.
Donc là c'est une spatule plutôt pour appliquer le mortier. Et ça c'est des éperons, des outils à pierre pour gratter le mortier.
To recreate the most fragile and shattered stone sculptures, engineers have developed pioneering techniques. The team scans the damaged sculpture and creates a three-dimensional computer model. They then 3D print this model, life-size, in a soft foam. They then use plaster of Paris to precisely reconstruct features that have eroded or been destroyed. Only then can the sculptors get to work to carve out the brand new replica statue from hard limestone.
Quand on est à la main, ça reste vraiment le ciseau et le marteau qui vont vraiment nous aider. C'est des techniques qui se transmettent.
The new sculptures must be carved from the hardest variety of limestone to make sure they're strong enough to hang unsupported and to withstand the elements outdoors. With their craft and ingenuity, these talented sculptors are carving hundreds of different decorative elements which will permanently adorn the restored cathedral.
When the project is finished, will you feel sad?
Sad? Non.
Happy?
Très heureuse, oui. On est heureuse de pouvoir redonner la cathédrale comme il était avant, aussi mieux, parce qu'elle n'était pas restaurée, ça fait longtemps qu'elle n'était pas restaurée. L'intérieur, c'était pas si lumineux comme aujourd'hui. On a redécouvert vraiment la couleur originale de Notre-Dame.
Looking more carefully at the stonework of the cathedral, these pillars, the vaults, it's just astonishing what they've done. They've really matched in the new stone to the old and given the old a magnificent clean too. They were aiming for you to get the idea that the cathedral was just finished yesterday, a full-on restoration, and they have achieved that. It's remarkable, the care that's been taken.
It's taken the dedication of nearly 1,000 workers to restore Notre Dame.
On a sur ce chantier des entreprises d'une compétence et d'une qualité incroyable, tant technique d'ailleurs que humaine. On est tous tendus pour la réussite de cette cathédrale qu'on aime tous. Je viens sur ce chantier travailler sur une magistrale merveille que j'aime tant, avec des gens que j'adore. Et ça, c'est formidable.
At the timber workshop in western France, the carpenters have cut hundreds of beams over 6 months. Now they're facing a challenging task. They must create the framework for the most complex section of the roof, the curved apse that crowns the rear of the cathedral.
Au niveau de l'abside, tu te retrouves avec 3 largeurs différentes.
The first step is to draw a precise outline of each truss on the ground. This allows the team to assemble the whole frame inside the factory to ensure that all the timbers and joints precisely interlock.
Il faut savoir lire un petit peu le bois pour dire quand il va s'assembler, comment il va arriver, un petit peu penché. Donc ça c'est à l'œil et il faut quelques années de pratique pour arriver à le maîtriser à 100%.
It takes 2 months to erect the apse in the workshop.
Non, on va tout charger, tu changeras après. Comment?
Once dismantled, trucks can ship it to Notre Dame, where it'll be reassembled.
On aura nos souvenirs d'atelier avec certaines pièces, certaines fermes où on sait exactement, quasiment, la pièce qu'on a taillée. Et c'est une fierté pour nous aussi d'avoir participé à une belle aventure.
On site, it's taken carpenters 4 months.
Yes, c'est ok. Tu peux tout relever, t'es passé.
To install nearly 100 trusses across the whole roof. The trusses cover almost all of the transept, as Notre Dame's iconic forest bursts back to life. Valentin and his team need to head for heights, working 60 meters above the ground. To make their task even tougher, they're now installing the most complex part of the roof, the curved apse that crowns the rear of the cathedral.
Accroche-moi les lingues sur l'autre versant et puis je vais mettre par-dessus. The biggest challenge on the apse, which is just behind me, because this is a part where a lot of wood pieces are coming together and the joints are particularly complicated to do. We can see some that are not typical, so that's what is most complicated for me.
To complete the curved roof framework over the apse, Valentin's team must assemble 2 tiers of wooden beams that radiate out like the spokes of a huge umbrella. Then they must install a frame with a spike on top that'll hold up the cross over the apse. Finally, they must attach the 20 rafters, which taper precisely at the top and fit together tightly to form a perfectly curved half cone at the rear of the roof. This is a big test. The timberwork for the apse fitted together in the workshop, but will it work up here? It takes Valentin and his team 7 days to fit this giant jigsaw together.
Si on le décale, attends. On peut le décaler un peu par là.
Today they reach a milestone. The final rafter needs slotting into place.
C'est bon.
The detailed planning and hard work of the carpenters has paid off. Notre Dame has a roof once more.
It's a unique project. We know that we won't see this view ever again. We are really proud of what we produced.
Over on the central section of the roof, inside this tower of scaffolding, workers are now gearing up to install the uppermost sections of the spire. The decorative frames that make up the octagonal spire slot into place. In December 2023, the reconstruction reaches its peak. The team gathers to install the top of the spire to crown this monumental achievement. The metal cross lands on top, and the skyline of Paris welcomes the new Notre Dame. With the timber spire and roof frames in place, the team must now prepare the lead covering for installation. They mould the rolls into individual sheets that will cover the roof and spire. They trim them into angular pieces that will protect the body of the spire. Some of the more complex shapes, such as the gargoyles and delicate ornamentation, must be cast from molten lead. Altogether, they must tailor-make over 3,000 lead pieces. A real feat of heavy metal haute couture.
Faire de la couverture, c'est habiller, le rendre étanche et pérenne à travers les années.
Julienne must fit 120 tons of 3.5mm thick lead sheets to cover the entire surface of the spire. The sheets should fit over the spire like a jigsaw.
C'est un matériau dur et mou à la fois. Et là, ce qui est un peu technique, c'est qu'il fait froid, donc il va être assez dur, assez dense. Donc on va le chauffer et il va se travailler plus facilement.
The malleable quality of the lead allows the team to bend and shape the material to cover the intricate angles and corners.
Je viens vraiment marquer l'angle à l'intérieur. Une première fois, avec une batte. J'ai une deuxième batte ensuite, qu'on appelle un bourseau. C'est une batte qui forme un angle un peu plus vif. Et ça vient à la finition ici. C'est la couverture telle qu'on la connaît depuis le Moyen-Âge. C'est à peu près les mêmes techniques. C'est juste qu'après, ça a évolué. On n'avait pas de caoutchouc, on n'avait pas de résine au Moyen-Âge. Ouais, c'était des battes en bois, des battes en buis.
The lead sheets must fit tight to the timberwork to create a watertight protective cladding.
Ça, c'est vraiment c'était la dernière passe.
Once the cladding is fitted, they can install the spire's decorative features. It takes Julianne and the team 2 months to cover the top half of the 96-metre spire with the lead that will protect it for centuries to come.
C'est quelque chose de super gratifiant parce que c'est la pièce maîtresse de la cathédrale. Il y a quand même une certaine fierté de se dire, bah voilà, quand ça sera fini, j'en étais là-haut et on l'a fait.
With the main construction works reaching completion, teams prepared the final elements to restore Notre Dame's legendary beauty.
C'est sûr que chaque fois que je viens là, c'est extraordinaire.
These 16 copper statues from the spire were miraculously spared from the fire, having been removed for restoration only days before the inferno broke out.
On est parti démonter ces statues le jeudi 11 avril 2019 et malheureusement 4 jours après, il y a eu l'incendie. On a eu la chance.
Coppersmiths have painstakingly restored the statues, which are now ready to regain their rightful place on Notre Dame's spire.
Et là, de dire qu'il y a des millions de touristes qui vont passer devant, waouh!
Inside the cathedral, the final touches are taking place. The decorative plaster walls, vaults and shrines are painted by hand to a luster that hasn't been seen in generations. To match expectations, every detail must be perfect.
Notre-Dame de Paris, c'est déjà quelque chose de... C'est un monument classé, patrimoine mondial de l'humanité.
For the whole team here, rebuilding Notre Dame has been the challenge of a lifetime.
C'est un amoncellement particulièrement savant et extraordinaire de bois, de pierre, de métal, de verre. Il y a une alchimie qui se crée. Voilà, et moi, c'est pour ça que je fais ce travail.
Over the course of the rebuild, teams have cut and carved more than 2,500 tons of stone, shaped and interlocked more than 2,000 pieces of timber.
To say it's the chance of a lifetime is a huge understatement. Just to be here on site every day, it doesn't get old for me.
Cleaned and reassembled 3,000 square meters of stained glass.
C'est magnifique la beauté de cette vitraux. Regardez là. C'est incroyable. Pour moi, c'est incroyable.
And rebuilt more than 50 statues.
It's been such a privilege to spend time in the cathedral. And what dedication from the architects, the restorers, the carpenters, all the craftspeople who've worked so hard to put it all together. And on such a tight deadline too. But it does seem like their dream of reopening in 2024 will be a reality. I think it's a stunning success. This project will have its critics, but nobody can deny the determination, the skill, the will that's gone into bringing the cathedral back from the ashes.
Tout ça considère que Notre-Dame fait partie de leur humanité, de leur histoire, de leur mémoire et de leurs repères. C'est comme la Tour Eiffel, c'est comme la Statue de la Liberté, c'est comme le Taj Mahal. Notre-Dame appartient à nous tous. C'est une des merveilles du monde.